Imagine you're sitting in your favorite spot right now, maybe in the living room with the afternoon light coming through the curtains, or out on the patio listening to the quiet sounds of the neighborhood. And let's just talk honestly about something that starts to feel familiar for so many of us once we reach our 60s and beyond. You know those little moments that catch you off guard? Like reaching for your glasses and suddenly realizing you have no idea where you put them, even though you just had them in your hand, or you're telling a story to someone and the name of the place or the person you're talking about simply won't come to mind, no matter how hard you try. Or perhaps there are days when you wake up and your head feels full of cotton, making even straightforward things like planning what to cook for dinner or following a conversation feel like they take more energy than they used to. And most of my time has been spent in conversations very much like this one. People coming in concerned because their memory doesn't feel as dependable as it once was, because small frustrations now spark quicker reactions than before, or because there's this ongoing mental cloudiness that makes even enjoyable activities seem to require extra effort. Almost every person I speak with has already decided this must be the natural, unstoppable slowing that comes with more years, a gradual fade no one can stop. But when we start looking more closely at their daily habits, especially what happens during the hours when the house is quiet and the lights are low, a different picture usually comes into focus. The primary thing quietly wearing down mental sharpness and emotional balance isn't usually too much sugar in the diet, constant worry, or family genes by themselves. Far more often, it's the subtle ways sleep routines have drifted over time, small shifts that no one really notices until the effects start to show in slower thinking, harder recall, and moods that aren't as even. The good news, the part that brings real hope and relief to so many, is that these same routines can almost always be gently guided back with changes that are simple, practical, and don't ask for anything complicated or expensive. Sleep serves purposes that go far beyond just giving your body a rest so you're not tired when morning arrives. In the deeper, quieter layers, the slow wave sleep that feels like sinking into a heavy, peaceful darkness, and the REM sleep where dreams come and go, your brain becomes an active nighttime workshop. It systematically clears out the waste products that build up from all the thinking, planning, remembering, and feeling you do during the day, keeping the brain's inner space clean and functional so signals can move without obstruction. It strengthens the delicate connections between brain cells that store and link memories, making sure recent experiences, a phone call with a friend, directions to a new place, what your grandchild said during a visit, stay accessible instead of fading quickly. It repairs minor wear in those neural pathways, so thoughts travel fast and accurately without getting stuck or slowed. And it processes the emotional side of the day. Any little stresses, happy moments, or quiet worries, helping sort them out so you wake up with a more balanced feeling instead of carrying yesterday's leftover emotions into the new day. When nights become choppy with frequent awakenings or don't provide enough time in these deeper stages, this essential maintenance work gets cut short or left incomplete. That's when the signs appear first in daily life. Forming complete thoughts takes noticeably longer, familiar details prove harder to retrieve, attention wanders more easily, and moods can feel unpredictable, overly sensitive, or strangely flat even on ordinary days. The National Institute on Aging has clear statistics showing that nearly half of adults over 65 experience some form of ongoing sleep difficulty. Yet more than 60% of those same people consider their sleep problems either unimportant or simply a normal part of aging. They often don't see how those restless or shallow nights gradually wear away at mental quickness and emotional steadiness over months and years. The process unfolds without any dramatic warnings. No sharp pain, no sudden crisis, just a slow, quiet dimming of how sharp and reliable the mind feels. Having reviewed extensive research and listened to hundreds of first-hand accounts from patients, one thing stands out consistently. When it comes to what sustains brain function in later years, sleep habits frequently prove to be the single most influential factor, and one that is genuinely possible to improve. It's seldom primarily about consuming too many sweets, enduring constant pressure, or carrying particular genes alone. Far more commonly, it's the everyday patterns around bedtime, how we prepare for rest, and what actually happens during the night that carry the greatest weight. Let's go through this together in a calm, step-by-step way, as though we're having a long, comfortable conversation with plenty of time. I'll describe the 5 most common sleep habits that quietly undermine brain performance for people in their later years, then explain practical adjustments supported by solid research from Harvard, Stanford, the University of Colorado, Johns Hopkins, the University of Michigan, and the National Institute on Aging. These are realistic steps, not theoretical ideas or difficult requirements. They're straightforward changes that have already helped many seniors feel their minds clear, their moods settle, and their focus return stronger. If you're comfortable, type your age in the comments when you can. I appreciate knowing who's here with me and who might be recognizing some of their own experiences. One of the most frequent issues begins with bedtime that varies from night to night. Perhaps one evening you're tired after a family visit, so you retire early. The next night a television program keeps you up longer, and weekends follow a different rhythm. This kind of shifting disrupts your body's built-in daily clock, the circadian rhythm that organizes when you're most alert, when memory works best, when concentration holds steady, and when emotions feel balanced. As people move into their 60s and 70s, this clock becomes somewhat less flexible, making consistent daily signals even more essential to keep everything coordinated properly. At the core of that clock sits a small cluster of brain cells called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master timer that depends heavily on reliable cues, particularly the same wake-up time and bedtime each day, to maintain accurate alignment. When bedtime fluctuates significantly, the brain struggles to schedule complete periods of deep, non-REM sleep, the stage that's crucial for converting short-term experiences into long-term memories you can access later. Researchers at the University of Colorado followed 300 adults over 8 years and found that inconsistent sleep timing was associated with approximately 30% faster decline in episodic memory, the ability to recall specific events, conversations, or experiences, even when total sleep duration appeared sufficient. In other words, 7 or 8 hours in bed does not provide full protection if the schedule keeps changing. Sleep's true restorative strength relies on predictability. The brain performs at its best when it can count on deep recovery occurring within roughly the same nightly window. If you've ever had the frustrating experience of walking into a room and instantly forgetting why you're there, or starting to speak and having the rest of the sentence disappear midway, go ahead and add foggy to your comment. We're very likely describing the same thing many others go through regularly. Another pattern that develops quietly is remaining in bed while fully awake for extended periods, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, sometimes longer. It feels logical to stay there. You're already comfortable. The lights are low, so sleep should arrive if you just wait. But the brain learns associations rapidly through repetition. Spending prolonged time awake in that environment begins teaching it to link the bed with alertness, thinking things over, or feeling restless rather than the automatic slide into peaceful sleep. Over time, this learned connection weakens the bed's power as a cue for relaxation, resulting in overall lighter sleep that fragments more often with numerous brief awakenings scattered through the night. Picture your bed as a peaceful, private haven intended only for rest. When wakefulness lingers there, it gradually becomes a place where mental activity continues instead of quieting. Johns Hopkins researchers tracked 250 adults aged 65 and older and found that those who regularly stayed awake for long stretches in bed experienced 42% more nighttime awakenings and significantly higher morning anxiety scores. That subtle increase in edginess often shows up as quicker irritation over small inconveniences, greater difficulty staying absorbed in a book or conversation, or a general sense that mental steadiness has slipped, even for people who never previously dealt with noticeable anxiety. Going to bed unusually early, often at 7 or 8 in the evening, surprises many as a problem. It seems like a sensible choice. More time in bed should mean more recovery. But the body builds natural sleep pressure through a sufficient period of wakefulness and gentle activity during daylight hours. When bedtime arrives too soon after waking, that necessary buildup remains incomplete. So even though someone spends 9 or 10 hours in bed, the actual duration in deep, slow-wave sleep and dreaming REM shortens considerably. Slow-wave sleep clears metabolic waste from brain tissue and firmly establishes factual knowledge and procedural skills in memory, while REM sleep processes emotions and supports flexible thinking. Without adequate preceding wake time, neither phase reaches its full length or intensity. The University of Michigan examined older adults who went to bed early and found their REM cycles were about 20% shorter than expected, despite the extended total time in bed. This pattern can closely resemble early cognitive decline, trouble finding ordinary words, slower mental processing, occasional confusion, but because the cause is scheduling rather than permanent structural change, correcting the timing often restores a meaningful portion of previous function. The brain retains its inherent capacity. What it needs is the appropriate framework to express that capacity fully. Exposure to even modest amounts of light during nighttime hours often surprises people as a significant disruptor. This might come from a hallway fixture left on for safety, the faint glow of an alarm clock, a quick check of a phone when waking briefly, or light filtering under a door from a television in another room. Even low levels of light communicate to the brain that full darkness hasn't arrived, suppressing melatonin, the hormone that facilitates smooth sleep onset, sustains deeper stages, and provides protective benefits to nerve cells against everyday oxidative stress. Reduced melatonin leads to lighter, less consolidated sleep, slower clearance of brain waste, and diminished effectiveness in forming and strengthening memories. Stanford University scientists studied adults 65 and older and discovered that even dim nighttime illumination decreased melatonin production by about 50%, resulting in shallower rest and measurably poorer performance on memory tasks the next day. Most individuals tend to minimize this factor because the brain doesn't protest immediately. The decline develops slowly and steadily, making it natural to attribute changes to age rather than an environmental element that can be modified. Long-term reliance on sleep medications night after night merits careful consideration. These can offer helpful support during short periods of high stress or travel, but when used every evening for 6 months or longer, particularly benzodiazepines, they frequently reduce the proportion of time spent in deep slow-wave sleep and REM sleep. Those specific stages represent the periods of most effective brain detoxification, memory reinforcement, and emotional recalibration. A significant study published in JAMA Neurology followed seniors using benzodiazepines nightly over extended durations and reported a 23% reduction in slow-wave sleep. This particular stage holds special importance because it facilitates the removal of proteins like beta amyloid, which, if allowed to accumulate unchecked, contribute to progressive cognitive challenges. Someone may feel they've slept adequately because they remained asleep for a solid block of hours, yet the brain has missed portions of its critical nightly repair agenda, leading to cumulative effects on clarity, mood, and reliable recall. The most reassuring aspect is that none of these patterns must lead to permanent or irreversible consequences. Scientific understanding of brain function in later life emphasizes remarkable resilience. the continuing ability to regain and maintain performance when conditions become more favorable. Even well into the 70s, 80s, and 90s, improvements in sleep support translate into meaningful, observable gains in daily mental life. The appropriate response is not fear or sweeping change, but gentle awareness paired with small, considerate modifications that better align routines with natural biology. To make this real, let me share two accounts from people I've worked with closely. Margaret came to see me at age 72. She looked tired and spoke in a soft, hesitant voice as she explained how frightened she felt. "I really believe my mind is starting to go," she said. She'd find herself standing in doorways, unable to recall what brought her there, struggle to find common words during phone conversations with her daughter, and notice a growing anxiety that made her question her own abilities in ways she never had before. She typically spent about 8 hours in bed, but bedtime varied considerably, sometimes around 9 o'clock, other nights closer to 11, and she often remained awake for nearly an hour once there, her mind circling through concerns about family, her health, or upcoming tasks. Together, we introduced the REST protocol, a structured yet entirely manageable set of steps I'll explain fully soon. Margaret committed to it with quiet determination. When she returned after 6 weeks, the difference in her expression and energy was clear. She reported morning alertness rising from roughly 40% to around 80% of what felt normal. Nighttime awakenings decreased from 4 or 5 to 1 or 2 at most. The creeping anxiety eased noticeably, replaced by returning confidence. While memory still had occasional minor lapses, she described the sensation as one of relief. Her brain had finally received the restorative conditions it needed. During one follow-up, she looked at me and said with a small smile, "I was convinced this was permanent loss. It turns out my brain was simply exhausted because the nights hadn't been providing the support it needed to recover." Harold, at 68, presented a related but different picture. He took pride in his routine of going to bed at 7 every evening to ensure plenty of rest. Unfortunately, he regularly woke around 3 and couldn't return to sleep, lying there growing increasingly frustrated. Memory testing revealed mild but detectable weakening in short-term retention. He'd used a low-dose sleep medication for years to help initiate rest. We began by establishing an unchanging wake-up time regardless of how fragmented the previous night had been, then gradually delayed bedtime while minimizing evening light exposure and, under his doctor's guidance, reducing reliance on the medication. His sleep-tracking device showed deep sleep increasing by 35% within 8 weeks. Repeated word recall assessments improved from 15 correct out of 20 to 19 out of 20. The persistent morning mental cloudiness vanished, and his mood remained noticeably more consistent from morning through evening. In a later conversation, Harold reflected that the protocol had effectively reset his natural sleep-wake cycle, finally allowing his brain to complete the restorative processes that had been consistently interrupted for years. Experiences like those of Margaret and Harold occur with encouraging frequency. Across the years, I've witnessed hundreds of older adults achieve similar measurable progress: sharper cognitive function, more stable emotional responses, steadier daily energy. Once sleep patterns received deliberate, consistent attention. The approach that reliably produces these outcomes is what I call the REST protocol, organized around 4 interconnected principles: rhythm through fixed timing, education concerning the cultivation of natural sleep pressure, stimulus control to reinforce the association between bed and sleep, and timing to identify the most suitable bedtime window. Rhythm starts with establishing a fixed wake-up time. Choose one realistic hour that works with your lifestyle, perhaps 7 o'clock or 7:30, and get up at that exact time every morning, including weekends and even following nights of poor rest. This unwavering daily signal powerfully strengthens the internal circadian clock, builds stronger sleep drive as the hours pass, and promotes fuller expression of deep restorative sleep when night returns. Research from Harvard demonstrated that seniors maintaining consistent wake times experienced a 30% improvement in deep sleep quantity within only 2 weeks. The initial mornings after inadequate sleep may feel difficult, but most people notice the body adapts quickly, rewarding the consistency with progressively better and more reliable nights. Education in this context involves intentionally supporting the natural development of sleep pressure, restrict daytime naps to 20 minutes maximum, and ensure they conclude well before 3 o'clock in the afternoon so they don't diminish nighttime sleep need. Immediately upon waking, seek bright light exposure for 15 to 20 minutes. Natural morning sunlight provides the strongest signal. When weather or season prevents outdoor time, position yourself near a bright therapeutic lamp or turn on multiple indoor overhead lights. Pair this with gentle physical activity, perhaps a slow walk outside or around the home, some easy seated stretches, or light tasks like watering plants or preparing a simple breakfast. These combined elements sustain higher daytime alertness, which then promotes deeper, more continuous nighttime sleep, granting the brain extended opportunity to complete its vital maintenance. Stimulus control directly addresses prolonged wakefulness in bed. The guideline is clear. If you've been lying down for 20 to 30 minutes or longer without falling asleep, or after awakening during the night, rise calmly. Maintain extremely low lighting, perhaps a small nightlight with a warm amber tone if movement requires it, and relocate to another room or chair. Engage in something deliberately dull and non-stimulating. Slowly turn pages of an old catalog without reading intently, fold a small pile of laundry methodically, listen quietly to soft instrumental music at low volume, or simply sit practicing slow, even breathing. Importantly, steer clear of anything activating. No electronic screens, no news or television, no gripping books, no mental list-making or problem-solving. Return to bed only when unmistakable sleepiness returns naturally. This practice systematically rebuilds the brain's recognition of bed as the place for sleep while dissolving the association with frustration or mental busyness. Johns Hopkins researchers documented that seniors practicing stimulus control reduced average nighttime awakenings by 42% over 6 weeks, often accompanied by a calmer overall relationship with sleep difficulties. Timing centers on targeting an optimal bedtime window for most older adults, usually between 9:30 and 10:30 at night. This interval typically synchronizes well with the body's natural evening melatonin rise and provides sufficient total hours for several complete sleep cycles, ensuring adequate time in both deep slow wave and REM stages. Should your present bedtime differ significantly, implement gradual adjustments, moving the hour by approximately 15 minutes later every 3 or 4 nights until reaching the preferred range. Proceeding slowly helps prevent temporary rebound insomnia or excessive daytime fatigue. Findings from the University of Michigan indicated that seniors who adjusted toward this optimized timing window demonstrated 15 to 20% improvement on standardized cognitive assessments after 4 weeks, largely attributable to lengthened deep and REM durations that enhanced memory storage and emotional equilibrium. Complementing these core elements, minimize artificial light exposure after sunset. Use warm, low-intensity bulbs in lamps and hallways, cover or dim any glowing clocks or device screens, and establish a routine that avoids phones, tablets, or television during the final hour before bed. Safeguarding melatonin levels facilitates smoother sleep initiation and enables more thorough execution of the brain's protective and reparative functions overnight. Should medications, whether prescribed for sleep or other purposes, appear to affect rest quality, discuss openly with your prescribing physician whether minor modifications might better support natural sleep architecture. Implementing rest produces a phased progression of benefits that feels organic and sustainable. During the initial week, many notice sleep beginning to consolidate. interruptions decrease, depth increases modestly, and mornings arrive with a perceptible reduction in heaviness. The second week typically brings easier sleep onset, brighter daytime energy, and a gentle easing of any background tension or low mood. By weeks 3 and 4, clearer gains become evident. Recent events or details return to mind more readily. Attention sustains itself longer during conversations, reading, or hobbies, and emotions remain steadier even amid ordinary demands. After the 1-month mark and onward, deep slow wave and REM sleep establish reliable patterns, reliance on daytime naps diminishes markedly, and overall mental clarity regains a sense of consistency and familiarity. The entire process resembles a gradual, careful recalibration of the brain's internal rhythms. Each small improvement builds upon the last until the cumulative effect emerges as substantially clearer, steadier, and more vibrant daily experience. For complete transparency, rest does not serve as a treatment or cure for dementia, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, or other progressive neurological disorders. Its focus remains on optimizing sleep conditions to provide the strongest possible support for existing brain function. Never discontinue or adjust prescribed medications independently. Always consult your physician first. Individuals managing diagnosed conditions including sleep apnea, significant cardiovascular issues, clinical depression, or similar health concerns should obtain medical clearance before adopting substantial routine modifications. The most prudent path begins modestly. First, establish and maintain the fixed wake-up time for 1 to 2 weeks, then gradually reposition bedtime, weave in morning bright light and movement, and introduce stimulus control once the initial elements feel secure. These modifications carry very low risk, while offering research-supported potential for meaningful brain-supportive gains. My gentle invitation to you is this: select one single component from the rest protocol that feels approachable and realistic in your present circumstances, perhaps committing to a consistent morning wake-up hour, gradually shifting bedtime later in small increments, intentionally reducing evening light sources, or practicing getting out of bed during extended awake periods, and follow it faithfully for a full 30 days. Keep brief, straightforward daily notes recording how clear-headed you feel upon rising, how balanced your emotions remain through the hours, and whether memory or focus shows even subtle improvement. At the conclusion of the month, return here and share your observations in the comments. Your experience, whether showing clear progress or simply honest effort, can quietly inspire someone else who is considering similar steps, and the act of noting and reporting strengthens your own commitment in a supportive way. The brain that has accompanied you through every chapter of life, the joyful times, the challenging ones, the peaceful ordinary days, truly deserves ongoing kindness and attention so it can continue performing at its best, rather than being quietly resigned to the label of inevitable aging.